Welcome everybody. Once again, my name is Ian Driver. I am the Education and Community Engagement Manager here at the Performing Arts Centre. I'm also operating today as our technical login person, so I have some people who are still coming in and I'm just letting them in. But I'm going to go through our opening procedures and talk you through some things before we start. We're still waiting, I think, for some of our guests. They may be coming late, or there may be a reason why they're not. So, well, hopefully that will proceed. Firstly, just let me know, Seth, can you hear me okay? Yep. So, as I said, I set up this call and I'm sharing the Zoom hosting responsibilities with our host, Seth Soloway, this morning. I want to thank you for joining us after that wait. I want to thank you for joining us for the Performing Arts Centre's third monthly coffee hour conversation. And we look forward to sharing as many voices and opinions as possible over the next 45 minutes. But before we start, here are some tips and requests that will help guide the conversation. We ask that you keep your microphone muted unless you're talking directly to the group. It prevents distraction from ambient noise. Please use the chat icon. Raise your hand if you'd like to speak. You can find the option in the chat control dots at the top right-hand corner of the texting box. Seth will see your hand raised, call on you to make a comment and ask a question. You can unmute your microphone at that time. I'd like to share, if you'd like to share any links or info during the session, feel free to post the links in the chat text next to the box. And we'll be sharing that contact information with our moderators after the event. When you make a contribution, please share your name and affiliation as you do. It'll help us understand the makeup of the group. Our marketing director, Mara Ruppners, will be live tweeting during the event. So to participate in the conversation, tag @PurchasePAC, or use the hashtag PAC Coffee Hour, and I'll put those in the chat when we get started. And finally, we are going to record, or we are recording this morning's conversation. If you have any questions or concerns about our future use of the recording, don't hesitate to let me know. I'll provide my email in the chat box too, and you can get back to me afterwards when we finish. So without further ado, I'm just going to admit, we have a few more members. I'm just going to admit our last few participants, which I think takes us up pretty much to full group. So, welcome. Our first guest today is Wu Han, co-artistic director of the Chamber Music Society. Pianist Wu Han is among the most esteemed and influential classical musicians in the world today. She is a recipient of Musical America's Musician of the Year Award and has risen to international prominence through her wide-ranging activities as a concert performer, recording artist, educator, arts administrator, and cultural entrepreneur. John Heginbotham is a Brooklyn-based choreographer, performer, teacher, and artistic director of Dance Heginbotham. John and Dance Heginbotham have been invited to participate in creative residencies at Pam Fisher, the BAMP Center, Baryshnikov Arts Center, Brooklyn College, Jacob's Pillows Dance Festival, to name but a few. In addition to his work with Dance Heginbotham, John is an active freelance choreographer, and in 2015 choreographed Daniel Fisher's highly acclaimed production of Oklahoma. I will say these, obviously these bios could have gone on for much longer, but I'm just truncating it for time. As a teacher, John has taught at institutions including Princeton, Barnard College, George Mason University, the Laban Center in London, the University of California, Berkeley, and the University of Washington. Pianist and composer, educator Pete Malinverni has been a fixture in the New York City jazz scene since moving here in the 1980s from his hometown in Niagara Falls, New York. Since moving to NYC, Pete has recorded 14 times as a leader, including a solo piano, trio, quartet, quintet, big band, and choral concert. All his recordings have been received by critics and the public alike, and have seen heavy airplay on platforms from the radio to the internet. Pete now serves as head of jazz studies at the Conservatory of Music at Purchase College, and alongside Seth Soloway, co-curates jazz at the center. And to kick us off this morning, Seth Soloway, director of the Performing Arts Center here at Purchase College. Seth holds a BFA in stage directing from Marymount Manhattan College and an MFA in Performing Arts Management from Brooklyn College. Since then, he has had numerous producing and managing positions within the performing arts world. So without any further ado, thank you for your time. Seth, over to you, and enjoy the conversation, everyone.
Thanks, Ian. That was very well done. As he said, I'm Seth Soloway. I'm the director of the Performing Arts Center at Purchase College, and Ian is available to record personalized intros for each of you for a small donation to the Performing Arts Center if you'd like that. So just want to put that out there. But we're very excited to have everyone here today. This coffee hour conversation concept has really gathered steam. We have so many people here today. The idea, for those who haven't joined us before, is that it's not a webinar. We don't claim to be here to teach anyone anything. It really is meant to be a coffee hour. I know I miss the coffee clutch of our field, whether it's I see Jefferson on my screen, who I usually get coffee with at a conference, or some of my team that I miss just walking to Starbucks with. So I've got one of my favorite cups here, and we just want to have a chat. The goal of this is just to bring everyone together, to share some thoughts and ideas so that together we can do what we know we have to do, which is keep the arts present in our lives through this crisis, and not just for the sake of the arts, but for the sake of society. So we just want to build ideas and momentum here. We get the topics from things we hear from these groups, so we don't make them up. So off the back of this, if there's something you want to talk about next month, please let us know, and myself and Ian and New York State presenters, we will pull that together for you. Today, what seemed to resonate the most, what we wanted to do the most, was something we haven't done, I think, enough, and that's hear the voice of the artists and how they are reacting to the moment. And we picked 3 artists for a couple of reasons. These are 3 folks who know that they can't just do a Band-Aid here and then go back to normal the minute there's a vaccine or restrictions are lifted. So these are folks who have evolved their virtual work in such a way that it tracks with the work they were doing before the crisis and the work that they hope to do after the crisis. They've changed, they've learned from things that worked and didn't work, and they've continued to evolve it. So I think they're going to give us some really, really good perspective. We chose folks from 3 different genres of performing arts to get all perspectives. And these are all folks that we have relationships with at the Performing Arts Center. And we wanted a cross-section of those relationships so that we could show how we're going to continue them and hopefully how others will continue them. So as Ian said, in no particular order, we have Pete Malinverni. Pete, there's so many of us on the screen. I don't know if Pete can wave. He's got the lounge above his head. So Pete is the chair of jazz studies at Purchase. So his role with us is about connecting to the students on the campus. And so he also co-curates the jazz series with me. And we do it in our black box. We do it in our 700 seat theater, but we build one-of-a-kind events that only happen on that night. Wuhan, along with David Finkel, artistic directors for, oh, my video went, for Chamber Music Society of Lincoln Center. Chamber Music Society of Lincoln Center has been in residence at Purchase for as long as I've been there. I was lucky enough to inherit that residency, and it was a no-brainer to keep it going. And so they deliver 4 programs that they curate per year for our classical music audience. And then last but not least, John Heginbotham. And John is here because anyone who's seen what we're doing knows that we do so much commissioning in dance. And so John, along with Sandy Garcia and Andrea, is an example of a group that Ian and I were just starting to build our relationship with before the crisis. We had planned on a commission, we had started to discuss projects, and now we're figuring out how do we keep that relationship going despite the fact that we can't necessarily commission a new work right now. So that's why they're here. And so I'm going to start with a few questions, and then as Ian said, I'll look for hands raised or in the chat for people who want to chime in, and we'll get people chiming in very quickly. So I'm going to ask the same question of everyone, and Pete, I'm going to start with you to give us just a little bit about what you've been doing virtually since the crisis started. What has worked really well that you're evolving, and what maybe hasn't worked so well?
Well, first of all, thanks. It's a real honor to see my face on the screen with all these great artists and presenters. And, you know, I know that everybody's going through a time right now. I have a lot of friends who are jazz musicians who really make the lion's share of their living playing in clubs and on tour, etc. And I know a lot of people who've had all their work cancel for the rest of their year, touring and in the clubs. I am also have been at this long enough to actually have some friends who are club owners and presenters. And I know one dear friend of mine who owns a club whose rent is $70,000 a month, on top of a staff and with no income. He had hoped to open the restaurant, at least, that's part of the club, for indoor dining. Of course, that changed in New York City last week because of the pandemic. So I know a lot of people are suffering. What I've been doing has sort of reflected the various hats I wear. I've been doing a series of things with Seth at the college for the Performing Arts Center. I've been doing like a little series of talks about what actually happens in a jazz performance, you know, kind of breaking it down by the various musical elements. One session was on melody, one on rhythm, one on harmony. I have two more on texture and form. And, you know, little 10, 12, 15-minute things where at least there's a way for me to talk to people, keep them involved with hopes that they will remember the PAC and will continue to be supporters, you know, when this sort of pall lifts, God willing. So that's been good. I've been also just now, I'm in a lucky position, and I'm thankful every day for that, because, you know, my work continues, as do my paychecks. I also serve as minister of music at a church, and I also serve as conductor and pianist at a Reformed temple in Scarsdale. So I've been doing little programs for all of those things, more or less just to keep people kind of cool, you know. Realizing that music and the arts in general is also a salve on the soul. I'm a Steinway artist. I did a couple presentations for them that they could send out worldwide. So I've become more and more aware of really our job as artists, you know, to, there's a term called tikkun olam, and it basically means to repair the world. And I've never really been more conscious of that duty, sacred duty, than I have now. So for me, it's been practicing 4 or 5 hours a day, which has been a luxury, and spending time making these various videos. I've been doing backing tracks for friends who are singers, and then they get donations when those performances are aired. I haven't really been trying to make money doing it because, you know, like I said, I'm one of the lucky ones. But really, for me, it's just been missionary work, you know, just trying to keep music and the arts in people's minds. And I think when this is all over, people will have a healthier awareness of just how important the arts are in their lives.
Thank you, Pete. That's very well said. Before we move on, just again, a reminder, if you're not speaking, to please mute yourself. And so I want to go to Wuhan with the same question. What have you been doing with Chamber Music Society virtually? What's worked really well? Is there something that maybe didn't work at first that you changed and that's now working better?
Yes. First of all, thank you for all of you of supporting art and joining the session. I have two perspectives. One is just as an artist. The other one is an artistic administrator, leading besides Chamber Music Society, as well as Music and Menlo on the West Coast, and as well as Wolf Trap down in Washington, D.C. I'm on a lot of advisory position so I hear a lot of words on the street. As an artist, I can tell you March 15 was one of the most depressing days on earth. And it took me about 2, maybe 4 weeks to recover from the shock of that. I actually can have to practice for nothing. I have not done so since I was 11 years old. There's always something, either a competition or a concert that I can jump on stage. But suddenly, like, everything stopped. When am I practicing? And it was so sad to also read all the news. So as an artist, I realized I did everything I could, from cleaning my closet or, reorganize my pantry and, scrub my floor and clean my refrigerator, to I realized I have tons of projects I always want to do and never have time to do. So the first 2 months as an artist, I actually went into a production and took a whole session of the Winterizer, what I recorded last year, and I finished a recording project. So once I done that, I feel so much better, because that's just our instinct as an artist to keep producing and keep creating. In the Chamber Music Society's world, we have been incredibly lucky in the last 10 years. 10 years ago was out of my desire to capture everything on video, because I feel we have a lost generation from the demise of the recording this industry. I feel like if we don't do any kind of documentary of what we have been doing, I don't want my daughter or my granddaughter say, "Mom, grandma used to play the piano, but I don't know how she played." So we had a couple angels showed up, and we started to capture all of the great performances on all Chamber Music Society stage in New York, including Rose Studio, the New Music, and our what I did not realize 10 years ago is right now I'm sitting on the most amazing treasure trove of a set, about 900 videos of great concerts, multiple camera, high definition camera, really fully produced with the director, with the score reader, with the fancy editing. That's what we've been doing for 10 years. And we were serving the audience, our own audience, but we actually only using that as an archival purpose. So when the pandemic happened, the first thing we did is start to organize it as a programmatic offering to our audience. We put out 8 different concerts. Each one has a specific theme. Some of our poetry inspire some of our storytelling. And in the first 2 months of that 8 program, we realized our viewership jumped. Depends on the age group. The lowest from 20 to 30, age 20 to 30, or 30 to 40, that was 300 or 400% of increase. From age 50, 40, 50, 60, that as high as 600% of increase immediately. And we realized there are audience online that have never engaged with chamber music, now are with us. So with that in mind, we jumped into producing a series of artist portraits. At that point was April. I feel strongly that everybody wants to know where our artists are and how are they dealing with it. So we curate a series with 8 incredible artists, each one with a very important story. One is a young composer, the other one is a woman with a family, and also an administrator. They are Joe Kalish, which is 84 years old, has different perspective. So the 8 artist series showed up, and it was so incredible, the response. We also hired a filmmaker to do the documentary using all the Zoom technology. And so the artist series showed up. And right now we're on the process, as we speak, we are on the 2nd of the summer series. That's another format of musicians introduce the music, and we have a concert format. In September will be an education month. We're going to all learn about chamber music. So September we have format of lectures with a performance. So you hear a lecture, you learn about the music, you hear a performance. Starting in October, we haven't announced this year, every week when Chamber Music Society has a concert, there is a digital program online for you, complete design with artist interview, with Q&A. And that's about another, I think, 32 programs in there. There are also new music program, and we'll continue to produce the artist profile. What makes it also interesting is we decided, just because of my position everywhere, I realized very few people has like lucky like we are, have the staff, the equipment, a little bit of the budget to be able to offer these high quality of presentation. So this has not been announced yet, but it will be next week. We quietly put everything, once it broadcasts in New York for 7 days, we take it down. We re-record a national version, and we asked all of our partners, presenters, would you like to have these videos in order to offer to your audience? We asked for a $200 donation to keep the staff alive, each program, as low as 200 as high as so very inexpensive to people. So next year, when the cancellation comes, you will have these high-end programs, the opportunity to invite your donors in. We have a national version say, please donate to your local presenters. So the presenter will be still there when the pandemic is over. So the national version is there. We pushed this project out about 2 or 3 weeks ago. We already have 25 presenters sign up in the United States. I'm just so happy and proud of that. I know even for myself, in the last 4 weeks, I have turned my mind around to be the most productive and the most excited person. I learned how to do Zoom. I learned how to produce video. I learned how to mount video series. I learned how to do Q&A. I learned how to even raise money online to support my musicians. I am kind of a person, you know that story of the 2 salesperson go to Africa to use, and the boss said, give us a report in 48 hours. The first salesperson wrote back and said, situation is dire, nobody wears shoes. The second salesperson, 48 hours, wrote back and said, great opportunity, nobody has shoes. So I am the second one. At first, I was the first one, and I turned around, I said, great, what a great opportunity. The future project, the next 6 to 12 months, we just did a strategic plan with our board, actually is to use this amazing opportunity to reach out, not just a local audience, actually reach out to an international audience using the internet format. We have already established partnership with Medici, with Tencent in China, with All Arts in the TV station. So the idea is not only offer everybody great concerts to our own audience, also is using the opportunity to reach out and make arts more available on the internet. The challenge in the beginning, of course, is really much more psychological and much more knowledge-based. And now I'm gradually conquering both of them. So I'm very relieved, even for my own mental health. So that's my little report.
Thank you, Wuhan. That's very instructive and so well put and helpful. And I love that we're seeing a lot of engagement on the chat with some of the resources that CMS is providing. And we've got some good questions coming in. But I want to go to John next to introduce him. And the same question, and John, I think I'd love for you to talk about how not only what you've been doing in this virtual moment, but that you have found a way to build something that seems to lend seamlessly into getting back to live audiences.
Seth, thank you so much, and thank you, Ian. Thank you, fellow guests, and all of the people participating today. It's really lovely to see your faces. I'm going to say something just right off the bat, which is the roof of my building is under construction right now, and it's been silent up until literally 10 seconds ago, and now they're hammering right over my head, so I apologize if you hear some of that.
It's okay, we thought it was dancing.
Yeah,
well, I suppose there's an argument that it is. So what I have been doing personally over the last 4 months is like laying low in my Brooklyn apartment. I teach at Dartmouth College and have been figuring out, learning how to exist as a being with other beings online. In trying to be sensitive to the most meaningful way that can happen, and actually feel kind of good about the skills that I've learned over this time. In terms of that, I will say that as the director of a dance company, I sort of gave myself permission to not necessarily feel the pressure of creating something right away. When we all went into lockdown in New York City, I was in the middle of a project I was working on for Jacob's Pillow Dance Festival. We were going to premiere that project with, in collaboration with the jazz musician and composer Ethan Iverson. And so we have put that on hold. That will resume at some point, I hope, in the relatively near future. And then this kind of opportunity / assignment came my way from a works in process at the Guggenheim Museum. They've commissioned several artists to create short works specifically for digital consumption. And I liked that idea of the assignment more than I liked the idea of trying to internally churn something out when I sort of wasn't feeling an impulse to do that. So I thought, what am I going to do? What would be fun and maybe something substantial that I could do during a time when everything sort of was feeling insubstantial to me. And so I decided that I would use that opportunity as the trampoline to start a long project. I thought everything is so encased in teeny weeny little bites for this time for social media, which is, there's nothing wrong with that at all. I mean, it is the nature of sort of what those platforms support. But I thought, well, maybe what if I found a way to sort of go against that or do something in juxtaposition to that. So I selected a piece of music that could be performed by one person, and that is Niccolo Paganini's 24 Caprices, which in total, is a piece of music that's around, let's just say, an hour and a half, depending on the musician. But it's broken up into these 24 little small parts. So I have started this idea, this to me is my COVID-19 project. And with the knowledge that it's hard to determine what exactly is going to happen very far in advance, but we know that the effects of this will be with us for a while. So I'm over a long time, we'll be making videos of all of these caprices. And the idea is that these are not pieces that are intended for live performance. They are fully intended to be video collaborations. And I have a really great friend and collaborator, a wonderful dancer named Miley Okamura, who is also the costume designer for all of the pieces of Dance Heginbotham, and who also is a wonderful sort of videographer and just, she has a wonderful mind. So she and I are creating the video content. We've released 2 caprices. We're about to release the 3rd. And I have to say that project feels like moving forward to me. It doesn't feel like a substitution for something. It feels like the thing that's happening, acknowledging the situation. And I would say that even if tomorrow we discovered that there was a vaccine and an effective treatment, and everything magically went back to normal, I would continue to work on these Caprice projects because they're sitting with me in a really compelling way. And I'll just add one other thing to this, which is that in addition to my work with Dance Heginbotham, another thing I'm doing is that in teaching at Dartmouth College, I am teaching this course that is focused on the history of Dance Theater of Harlem. And I have to say that in a certain way, because of COVID-19, I've kind of met some new friends, and that's a really positive thing. And it's sort of through the online version of this course that is the way that the director and sort of higher ups at Dance Theater of Harlem and me and my associate colleague there, Professor Dr. Monica Ndunu, we're all figuring this out together. How can we teach this course, which is about you know, this fascinating dance company and their trajectory. And so I appreciate this opportunity to find new friends. And Seth, like, I would also consider that we're forming a new friendship, and I really appreciate that. And we're collaborating and figuring out ways to, you know, to work together and be, you know, do things together in this online forum. So thank you for your time there. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, John. So I'm going to go first. I have some good follow-up questions if we do get stuck. But Crystal had a question. So I want to give the floor to Crystal to ask her question.
Oh, thanks so much. I'm Crystal from Tremper Arts. Hello, everyone. And I used to work at Chamber Music Society, just that full disclosure. I know that a lot of presenters are struggling to figure out how to pay artists for this new content, especially being mindful of equity as we're asking artists themselves to pivot to digital, you know, and trying to be mindful of this moment, especially for our BIPOC artists. But the larger question that's posed to presenters is how we're going to build up or rebuild our earned income structures if we're going to be pivoting to digital over the next 18 to 24 months, and if it's going to continue to be offered. So I know that a lot of different theaters are experimenting with different versions, whether it's donation-based or just encouraging membership, or as Wuhan just said, asking, you know, viewers to make donations to their local venues, which I think is really generous and kind. I'm wondering how folks are thinking about that, how artists feel about that, and just what models folks are working on.
Sure. Thank you, Crystal. So I'll look to see if any of our panelists want to chime in. I can tell you while they think about their answer very quickly that what we're trying to do at the Performing Arts Center is mirror what we've always been doing and stick to that vision. So we know we can't do the shows right now, and we're not putting shows online because of that. What we're trying to do is put our community engagement type content out, things like this, things like master classes, things like talks with artists like John or Wuhan, or we did one with Kyle Abraham, and things like that, where we're just keeping the artist with the audience at their agreement. We're not charging right now, but what we're hoping to do is we're busy applying for all of our foundation grants. So we're hoping that the artists we're working with now, like John and the ones you see, we can get to a point where we can start bringing the artists back to purchase by just inviting. So for example, I'm gonna use dance because it's the best example in terms of a scale of a group. I probably can't bring all of Dance Heginbotham to purchase at all next year, but if I can write a grant, have a few $1,000s plus the other things you need, and just bring John and just start to pay him to do the engagement work that we always do, so that hopefully by the fall, we're either back to a season, or if not, in the fall or in the spring, to a place where we've done enough work with the artists that we've planted seeds with that we can say, okay, now do you want to make something that we would put online and charge a ticket and send that revenue, a portion of that revenue back to the artist. So that's what we're trying to do. But I think it's tough to define broadly because it's really specific to our vision at purchase. I see Wuhan has an answer for this too, so I'd love to go to her.
Well, Crystal, thank you for asking that question. That's a really, really crucial question. All of the best musicians that do not have a teaching position, because we're also busy running around the stages of different stages all over the world, are the ones suffer the most right now with zero income. What Chamber Music Society has done is we actually has asked all of our subscribers, just go ask and say we need to support our artists. And I can tell you, society, both in Chamber Music Society case as well as Music and Melodies case on the West Coast, we have really high number. People just say, pay the money, give it to the artist. So from that, we have started a practice of paying musicians for the cancel season 50% of their fees so they can survive. And then we have committed to re-engage them for the future season. When they come back, we pay them 75% of the fee. anticipating we're going to have a downfall in fundraising. But at that point, I have 75% of the artistic budget. So it's a win-win situation, both in Music at Menlo and in Chamber Music Society. That was our practice right now. And we have quite a few presenters and quite a few festivals has followed this particular pattern. Sometimes, of course, it's impossible. I can also tell you that I have Monday to Friday, every day, a 5:30 drink with my CMS subscriber, donors, board members, 8:30 with Music at Menlo, subscriber, ticket buyer, donors. I'm home, I'm not traveling. The only problem is you drink a little too much. So now I'm starting to use Chinese tea. But the idea, actually now we have a chance to get to know our audience intimately. And I think for as an artist administrator, this is a time we have to do that. There's no shortcuts of it. You have to go fundraise. And then another thing that you will notice in the national version, I would love to have all of us all start to talk about, have everybody start the habit of when you watch a broadcast, just give $10, $20, whatever the ticket number you might be paying. Pretend, just accept the fact that this is my culture budget that I am going to pay so the organization can survive, the artist can survive. And one more thing I want to put in there is I went there in the last 3 months many times. Let's start an emergency fund and let's help pay the artists. What I discovered is a lot of emergency funds ran out so quickly because the demands are so high and everybody gets $150, $200. It's kind of meaningless. And I also talked to many of my friends, musicians. I realized, including myself, I did not put out one free video on the internet. I just don't want to do that because this is my work. I have lots of pride. And when we talk about it, I say, okay, I'm going to make the principle, among the principle, if you work for Chamber Society, you work for Music at Menlo, I'll pay you. So even the interviews that you see on the national broadcast, when the artists come on board, when they join me for a Zoom drink, I give them an honorary. And I also have started a practice, which is interesting. I raise enough money. The last 3 months, the fundraising was the most intense thing. But now I raise enough money, I can start to pay my music a small chunk. Made them feel so good. It made them feel the self-worth and the self-respect are there and give them something to look forward to. I also have raised 2 chunks of money and talked to a few presenters that have a little endowment. We are actually mounting a few very important large projects, not now, 3 or 4 years from now. And we are putting a down payment for the musician in order to support our artists. I have a huge quartet cycle 4 years from now in place with a recording project. And my string quartet is getting half of their fee. And you should see this, the cheers on the other end of the telephone. So there are creative things we could do. They are change of mindset as artistic leader that you need to express and speak forcefully for the artists and for the organization. Fundraising, go for it. I know I have not been turned down once when I say, can you give me $5,000 because my artists really need the support, but here's how I'm going to do it. And so that's how I was able to do all the things we have done, including raising the money for the video production, including paying musicians 50%, including mounting future projects. So Crystal, if you want to have a private conversation, I'm happy. Just call me. You know how to do it. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. So I have some more, and there's so much we could say, and we're getting short on time. One thing that came up was what kind of reaction people are getting to the stuff that they're putting out online in terms of how many people. And I think it'd be great if we wanted to throw things like that in the chat, just how it's going in terms of engagement. I can say on our side that it's been pretty good, and I'm going to sort of take that question to Pete and wrap it into another question. So you've been doing a lot virtually for the college and for the Performing Arts Center. what are you seeing in terms of those audiences and responses to it? How is that going? And also, how does what you're doing online tie up to what you're doing, and maybe then what you're all doing to work with students in a moment like this?
Well, I mentioned, I'll answer the second half first. You were talking about students, and I mentioned earlier that I've been, playing these little backing tracks for singers, etc. And I've been doing quite a bit of that for some of our singers in the program so that they've been able to make videos and put them out on Facebook and get donations as far as that goes. And I've also been in contact with our students on a weekly basis, doing Zoom things, and we're having another one next week, just to kind of let them know we're, they're in our hearts still, that we're doing everything we can to meet them. The state has agreed to allow all the music students back on campus next semester, so that's good news. And I assume dancers as well, and some others that need that face-to-face business. And as far as the stuff for the college, as you know, Seth, you guys have been putting these things on Facebook and out to your donors, et cetera. And I've been getting a lot of really nice emails from people. The little series we're doing is a look behind the scenes at what actually happens in a jazz performance, it being one of the only art forms where you're composing and performing at the same time, right? And so people are wondering, like, what the heck, in fact, the series is called What's Going On Up There? So I've been getting a lot of really nice emails from people saying, great, that, it's sort of whetting their appetites for coming back and paying to get into a performance. And of course, I'm encouraging that. And I always tell them to keep the PAC in mind if they feel in the mood to donate.
Thanks much, Pete. Yeah, I can say for our part, and to Wuhan's point, the programming that we've been putting out virtually, to me, one of the most exciting parts is that the students, the donors, the people who want to support the PAC, it gets them also reaching out to me. And then we do set up calls and too many cocktails and all that sort of stuff, but it has created this wonderful exchange. So as we run a little low on time, Duke has asked me a question, which is a great question, both because it's a great question and because it also allows me to couple with it what I want to close on. So I want to ask the panelists, what can we as presenters, arts managers, institutions, what can we be doing to support artists that we haven't talked about? John talked about our commissioning process. How can that still work in this moment where I can't write a big check, but I can make certain promises, which leads me to Duke's question. Yes, absolutely. One of the things that I am leveraging is what we have in terms of empty space and this ability to do exactly what Duke's written in the chat if people are looking at it, create little studio bubbles where artists can visit, work at a distance with students, start to make work at a distance, start to deliver, make digital content in the studios, in the theaters. It's all stuff that we're trying to work towards in the hope that we can, in addition to get some funding and start to do some of that stuff at Purchase in the spring. I can tell you, for all my university presenter friends on the call, it just takes asking at the high levels and being pushy. The people at the high levels of these universities are really, really strapped right now, but they still want to get back to the mission. So you have to ask them. I had a conversation with our provost yesterday thinking, well, there's no way that we could get funding to get this better streaming technology so that we can do what we're doing in a little bit more high caliber way. And it turns out that asking just opened up the conversation. So as simple as that sounds, yeah, we can do it. It just takes those of us in the positions to do it, pushing. So that's my answer for Duke. I'd love for the panelists to finish by chiming in on either Duke's question or the question that I posed of what we as arts managers and institutions can be doing to support artists in the making of your work, be it virtual or the future in-person work that maybe we haven't touched on yet.
I'll just say that I've been working with a choreographer and one other musician doing rehearsals, and you know, in this big studio with just the dancer and another musician, so we're able to be socially distant. And the choreographer, Fadi Khoury, he's envisioning what it'll be, and then he plans a series of small group donor attended demonstrations of the work we're doing toward that eventual time when you know, we'll be able to actually perform the things in public. And in so doing, he hopes to be able to keep paying his dancers.
Great. Thank you, Pete.
Yeah.
John or Wuhan, you have a closing comment?
I think we have to accept the fact that the art consumption is not going to stop in person or online. But I think as a presenter or as an artist, there's a couple of principles that will never go away. Number one is if you do great quality work, people will support you. So I think the continue creating project that can be inspiring, can be beautiful, can lift people's spirit, can have a point of view, those will be the one will survive. Okay, so as an artist or as an organization, we should continue to push out things. I also think, like I said earlier, this is actually a great opportunity. I think this for artists that, for me, I realize I have the next 12 months to learn something, to do some project that I never had the time to do. I think I'm kind of in the artist's mind. I told my musicians, think of it like you have a self-imposed sabbatical. And so you can store up your repertoire and you can dream up larger projects that will make you stand out. And I think as a presenter as well, I think online you have huge opportunity now. If you can reach your audience, that would be amazing. Another thing is the principle is still the same. If your audience, if your donor, if your community understand what you're doing, if they are more engaged with your art form, they are more informed with your art form, when they come back, they will be even more excited to be at a live concert. So all of these digital creation that we have done on the internet, I think is actually a great opportunity. I'm establishing a listening club kind of activities in Chinese society. We've already done 2 of them. People love them. They are telling me, I never know George Benjamin is such an interesting composer. Oh my God, I never really realized that's how you musicians hear Beethoven. And I always have my own opinion. So, you know, the engagement through internet is actually quite intimate. I also feel same thing. If you just bend your mind a little bit, I never had a chance to meet all my audience and my donors, have a drink in the Zoom. Now I'm seeing them all, they really become more, I become more human for all of them. And so do they. I have a much more intimate relationship with my community now. So I actually think if you find as a presenter or as an artist, you know you're working for your art form and put in all the most positive and creative thinking you have and find the most energetic activity for all your community to do. And I'm laying down the groundwork 2 years from now. I will have a whole library of learning videos from these Zoom meetings. I'll have a whole library. I will have the biggest party to all my Zoom friends with my subscribers and all my donors. I'll make so many new friends in the Far East and all over the world through all these wonderful projects. And I can't need to wait to meet them all. So there's things you could do, and it's our job to inject the creativity and the positive energy and thinking to lead the industry and to lead the audience as well. So that's my take of it.
Thank you so much, Wuhan. That's inspirational as always. And I just want to key in what was said that was so important about building groundwork, because I know we think this is not a Band-Aid solution. We're going to need to incorporate this kind of work going forward always, I think, regardless of this moment. So I think that laying the groundwork is a really important phrase amongst many important things that you said. So I think, John, that leaves you last but not least.
Well, to very briefly reiterate, Wuhan, what you were just saying about the friends that are, the friendships that are forming here. Like the opportunity here is connection, whether it's, you know, connection with artist and presenter, or artist audience, presenter audience. It's you know, we're all people who are dealing with, you know, COVID-19 and racial unrest and all of the great significant sort of developments of this time. And so that offers us a chance to be vulnerable and connect with each other. You know, I would say that one way that I feel like the idea from Duke about presenters also helping support artists is, while of course money is the, you know, elephant in the room and is always problematic. I feel like one of the and by always problematic I mean during this time while everybody's under great financial stress. You know, I would just say though that, you know, artists, in order to make something, it does take time and effort and people to do that. And so if conversations can be had about, you know, compensation, you know, for the process of the creation of the work, of course, that's always welcome. And I feel like people are also more available to have different kinds of conversation about that, because we all know that we don't all have what we had 4 months ago necessarily. When even then it was already, you know, a struggle for a lot of us, but it's you know, even more so now. So I would just say like for all of us to just not be afraid to have those conversations, you know, it is a really wonderful, wonderful gift, just to have that opportunity. And yeah, I just, you know what, I also just want to close my portion of this by saying, like, here, this coffee conversation is a wonderful way to connect. And Wuhan, once again, what you're saying, like, I'm seeing people's faces and I'm seeing people's living spaces, you know, which over 4 months has never ceased to be interesting and sort of beautiful to me, to see where people live and what they choose to decorate their homes with. And that's very intimate in a way that is pleasing and lovely. So it's really great to see you all. Thank you so much. And thank you, Seth and Ian.
Thank you, John. And yeah, on the Zoom connections, I have to admit to everyone that I failed John, because at a point a couple of weeks ago, we were having a beard contest and I gave up. So John, you win, but I'm glad to end on a laugh. I want to thank everyone for being here. It's so great to see everyone. I want to thank my team at the Performing Arts Center, who really puts this all together. We're doing our jobs despite the situation. New York State presenters and Arts Westchester, who support what we do. And I also want to say, if you look in the chat, Ian put his email there. Please let us know what you want to talk about next. We'd love for you to influence the conversation. And I also want to recognize, you know, we heard from the artists today. We haven't heard a lot from the artists' managers, and I see our great colleagues, Carrie and Sandy and Natalie, and I'm sorry if I missed anyone who are on the call, who are also working really hard to put this out. So maybe we need to hear from you guys next. Nudge, nudge. And last but not least, of course, I want to thank the panel, Pete and Wuhan and John. You guys are amazing. We're so lucky to have you. Everyone stay safe and healthy.
Thank you, Seth.
Thank you, Seth.